Too close for comfort? Taehyung spotted with Celine executive's daughter. Jungkook's reaction leaves fans in tears. Jealousy? Distance? Or just coincidence? What started as a glamorous fashion trip has now spiraled into one of the most emotionally charged controversies BTS fans have seen post-military. Taehyung, freshly discharged and shining brighter than ever at Celine's exclusive Paris events, was seen enjoying his time among the fashion elite. But one face beside him in particular has thrown the fandom into a storm of speculation and heartbreak. The daughter of a top Celine executive, elegant, poised, and unmistakably close to Taehyung in more than just proximity. Photos taken at a private gathering following the Celine event show her laughing beside him, her hand lightly brushing his sleeve in what fans described as too familiar, too intimate, and not just business. Another picture, blurry but damning, captured the two entering what appears to be the side entrance of a boutique hotel just before midnight. HYB has said nothing. Celine has issued no comment. Taehyung? Silent. But the world turned its gaze not toward Paris, but toward Jungkook, because just hours after the images went viral, Jungkook, who had been silent for days, broke that silence with a post so vague, so emotionally loaded, that fans are still trying to breathe. You don't always notice when you're being replaced. Sometimes they smile while they do it.
No caption, no tags.
Just a black background and those haunting words, and fans crumbled. Was this really happening? Was this Jungkook's way of telling the world he felt cast aside? Theories exploded instantly. Is he talking about Taehyung? Was Paris supposed to be their trip? He saw the photos, didn't he? Why does it feel like we're watching a breakup in real time? The intensity of the reactions wasn't just about what Jungkook wrote, it was about what he didn't say. Because behind the quiet pain of his post was the undeniable weight of knowing, of seeing, and it didn't stop there. Shortly after the Cryptic update, Jungkook unfollowed several fashion-related accounts on Instagram, including 2 linked to Celine's staff members. One of them? The very executive whose daughter was seen with Taehyung. Coincidence? Fans don't think so. And as always, the army detectives worked fast. They pointed out that Jungkook had been unusually silent during Taehyung's Paris trip. That while fans speculated he might be there in secret, there was no confirmation, no sighting, no subtle hint in his usual digital breadcrumbs, until now. Because this felt like a response, a reaction not just to a situation, but to someone and a person he once called family. And when that kind of closeness is shaken, the fallout isn't subtle. It's seismic. One fan on Twitter wrote, "This isn't jealousy. This is heartbreak. This is watching someone you love choose another world, and you can't follow." Others echoed the sentiment, noting the stark contrast in energy. While Taehyung basked in Parisian lights, swirling in the orbit of fashion's elite, Jungkook remained in the shadows, posting less, saying little, vanishing from the platforms where he once connected so freely. Was it because he saw this coming? Or because he never believed it could happen? Because if Paris was supposed to be a moment of reconnection, a place for 2 long-separated brothers to reunite after military service, then what happens when one of them ends up arm in arm with someone else? And the other left watching? Worse still, some fans noted that the Celine executive's daughter had previously been seen at another BTS-adjacent event in 2023, when rumors briefly swirled about Taehyung having someone important among the VIPs. Was this connection longer than we thought? Were we only just now catching up to the story that had already begun months ago? And where does that leave Jungkook? Because his post didn't just hint at betrayal. It hinted at replacement, the kind that doesn't scream, the kind that arrives smiling, quiet, final. And now, with no clarification from either side, the fandom is caught in limbo. Some defend Taehyung, insisting the photos are innocent, the closeness misinterpreted. That in the fashion world, these relationships are common, expected, non-romantic. But others see something deeper. They see the absence of Jungkook in Taehyung's Paris life, not just physically, but emotionally. They see a man who once followed without needing to be seen, now left behind without even being mentioned. And perhaps the most devastating thought of all, that Jungkook wasn't reacting to a surprise, but to a confirmation. That the silence between them had a reason, that the distance wasn't temporary. That this, whatever it is real. So now, the The world waits, not for statements, not for apologies, but for acknowledgement, because one boy in Paris danced beneath the lights with a new face beside him, and another sat alone, eyes glassy, whispering to millions. You don't always notice when you're being replaced, and somewhere between that post and that photo, something broke, and all of us felt it. And what's more heartbreaking is that we don't even know if they'll ever talk about it, because that's how Jungkook and Taehyung have always been quiet storms. Their connection was never about public declarations or staged photos. It was always in the in-between. The glances, the unspoken support, the silences that still somehow felt safe. But now, the silence feels different, and IT feels like absence, and IT feels like goodbye. Fans are combing through old interviews, trying to pinpoint the shift. Was it after military enlistment? Was it something that happened during service? Or is this simply what happens when two people who were once inseparable start drifting in directions neither of them expected? Because for Jungkook, this wasn't just about being left out of a trip. This was about not recognizing the person you thought you knew best. When Taehyung stood on the red carpet, laughing beside someone who doesn't know what it's like to sleep in a cramped dorm, who wasn't there during trainee nights full of fear and ramen and shared dreams, fans couldn't help but feel the weight of that distance. One fan wrote, "That girl may know Paris, but Jungkook knows Taehyung's soul." Or, at least he used to. And that's the tragedy. Not that Taehyung was seen with someone else, but that Jungkook seems to be realizing he might not be the closest person in his life anymore. And the pain of that realization is what made fans weep as they watched his live stream, read his cryptic post, and saw his social media activity darken by the hour. This isn't just a friendship on pause. It feels like a disconnection. One that neither of them seems ready or willing to explain. Because what do you say when someone who was once your whole world starts orbiting somewhere else entirely? What do you post when the person who used to laugh at your dumb jokes in a van at 3 a.m. now shares his evenings with strangers in glittering Paris salons? How do you respond when the bond that made you feel invincible suddenly feels replaceable? Maybe that's why Jungkook's post didn't tag anyone.
Why it was so stark.
So final, because it wasn't about starting drama, it was about releasing grief. This wasn't anger, this was mourning. And now, fans are mourning too. Not just for Jungkook, not just for Taehyung, but for Taehyung, for the years of unspoken love, of quiet understanding, of being each other's anchor in a world that never stopped spinning. Maybe it was naive to think they'd never drift. Maybe it was always inevitable. But the pain still hits the same. And while the internet debates timelines, intentions, and Instagram clues, millions of fans are left with nothing but that post. You don't always notice when you're being replaced. Sometimes they smile while they do it. And behind that line, a boy who gave his all, who followed without asking, who stayed silent out of respect, who supported from the shadows, and who finally realized sometimes even loyalty doesn't guarantee a seat at the table, especially when the lights are brighter elsewhere, especially when someone else is already sitting in your place. So the question is, was Taehyung too close to someone new? The real question is, was Jungkook ever supposed to be there at all? And now that he's watching from the outside, heart in hand, voice shaking, fans are begging for something more than silence. A word, a gesture, anything from Taehyung to say, "I didn't forget." But until then, we're left with echoes, with Paris photos too glossy to be real, with a cryptic black post from a broken heart, and with a fandom still whispering, "Please say something," before the silence becomes permanent. And yet, from Taehyung's side, nothing did no live stream, no statement, not even a change in behavior. He continues to post, to pose, to shine beneath the Parisian spotlight, as if he's unaware of the storm erupting just beneath the surface. As if the boy who once stood beside him on countless stages hadn't just silently begged to be seen. Fans are starting to question, is this silence a choice? A form of protection? Or is it something more painful? Indifference. And that's what's causing the deepest ache within armies. Because if Jungkook's post was a cry for acknowledgement, then Taehyung's lack of response feels like a door being closed, not with cruelty, but with distance, with change, with growing apart. And that realization has sent the fandom spiraling into grief, not over a breakup, not over dating rumors, but over the slow, quiet ending of something they thought was unshakable. over the death of a dynamic that held so much meaning for so many, because Taehyung wasn't just a ship. It was a story that millions of fans believed in because it wasn't loud, it was quiet. It wasn't performative, it was intimate. It wasn't built on declarations, but on glances, on gestures, on the kind of silent understanding that exists between people who know each other. And now it feels like we're watching that story fade to black. Some fans are clinging to hope. Maybe Taehyung's just waiting for the right moment, they say. Maybe he's hurting too. Others aren't so sure. They're pointing to the recent shift in Taehyung's public persona, the curated fashion-forward image, the distant smiles, the entourage of celebrities and luxury executives that now surround him. Is he becoming someone else? Or is he finally becoming only himself? And if so, is there no room for Jungkook in that new life? Because it's not just about who Taehyung was seen with, it's about who he wasn't seen with. There was no Jungkook in Paris. No Jungkook in the behind-the-dash scenes. No Jungkook in the laughter. No Jungkook in the photos. Just empty spaces where he used to be. And in response, Jungkook's silence has now turned into withdrawal. His latest story? Deleted within minutes. His fan platform profile? Blank. His last public playlist? Filled with tracks about loss, about letting go, about watching someone walk away. Even the last song he played during his emotional live stream, a piano version of In the End, felt like a final page being turned. Because how do you fight for someone who doesn't look back? How do you hold on when you're the only one holding? You don't. You let go. And that's what fans fear most right now. That Jungkook is learning to let go of the dream, of the bond, of him. What happens next? Does Taehyung break the silence? Does Jungkook disappear for a while, as he's done before? Only this time, maybe for good. Does BTS ever stand on stage again with the same closeness they once had? Or is this the beginning of a new chapter where some members move forward together and others are left behind? Fans are writing letters, creating art, posting edits with captions like, "It used to be us," and "You are my safe place." They're mourning as though something truly sacred has been lost. Because to many, it has. The bond between Jungkook and Taehyung wasn't just a friendship. It was a promise, a belief that even in a world as brutal and isolating as fame, someone would always choose you. But now, with one in the spotlight and one in the shadows, that belief is shattered. And in its place, only questions, painful, echoing questions. Why didn't he choose him? Why didn't he say anything? Did he forget how much he meant? And the one that keeps returning, quiet and trembling, did he stop loving him first? Only time will tell if this fracture can be mended. But for now, all we have is a single, soul-crushing quote. "You don't always notice when you're being replaced. Sometimes they smile while they do it." And behind that, Jungkook's silence, Taehyung's distance, and millions of fans, holding their breath, waiting for a miracle or a goodbye.